Hello and welcome to Covestro Live. On today's episode, we'll explore the fascinating world of vehicle lighting. We'll dive into the nuances of lighting design, functionality, and future innovations. So let's uncover the significance of illumination in the driving experience. Yes, hello everyone and welcome back to Covestro Live. Today we continue to explore future mobility and meet innovators. Today specifically in the field of lighting. Now, the landscape of electric vehicles is evolving very fast. They're also evolving into higher levels of autonomy. And this is where lighting takes on a whole new meaning. The days of a single bulb on the interior roof, which I can still remember from my first car, are long gone. So just so you know what kind of simplicity I'm talking about, I actually found a picture of my first car, and those auto enthusiasts will recognize the model. This is what it looked like, and it was a very popular choice among the youngsters in the 80s. In terms of lighting, just the bare essentials. By the way, if you know what the letters in the country badge SF stand for, feel free to write it in the comments below. Now, this is just a reference to compare to the cars of the past. Today, cars are transforming from just driving a car into a rolling living and working space. Infotainment, displays, and ambient lighting are some of the keywords here. Also, the exterior is changing and will change significantly, as we'll see soon. Lighting is responsible not only for an emotional welcome to the driver, but also provides safety. It can help in communicating with other road users, something I'm very keen to talk about, including pedestrians. And of course, it enables brand differentiation. When you see that bright logo on the sidewalk when opening the door, you definitely are reminded what kind of and what brand of car you're riding. Today, together with our high-level experts, we want to talk about the present and the future of lighting in electric and autonomous vehicles. We want to talk about personalized lighting, new functions and strategies, but also about the psychological effects of light, particular for autonomous driving, all the way up to the integration of LiDARs and other sensors. Which brings me into today's panelists. And wow, what a panel do we have today. Let me bring them up on screen. Here we go. Let's start with Paul Snyder, Chair of Transportation Design at the College for Creative Studies in Detroit, Motown. Hey, Paul, good to see you.
Hi, everybody.
Now, Paul works perhaps for the best car design school in the world, and you can correct Paul if I'm overstating.
No, we're like at least in the top 2 on the planet, I would say. Yeah.
And you have worked all over the world for both interior and exterior development for a number of well-known brands like Ford, Renault, and Honda, which is fantastic. Then we have 2 experts from Driving Vision News, or DVM among friends. Let me see if we can get our friends online. DVN is the world's journal for reference for innovation and new technologies around automotive lighting. And today also for car interiors and LiDAR. Daniel Stern, good to see you, Daniel.
Hello there. I'd say good morning. It's good morning where I am. Good day to everyone around the world watching.
Thanks, Daniel. I mean, you are the chief editor of lighting, and for North America, but you work in Canada, so you're kind of North America all the way.
Yeah.
And we are now getting online Paul-Henri. Good to see you, Paul-Henri. Salut, monsieur.
Yes, hello. Nice to meet you. So my name is Paul-Henri Matha. I'm the Chief Operating Officer in DVN. So I joined in August. So before that, I was technical leader in exterior lighting in Volvo cars. And I am in France, so it is already night. So it is in the evening. So hello again.
Welcome, Paul-Henri. Fantastic to see you, and great that you could make it. And last but not least, we have Covestro's very own Karen Guzman, automotive marketing manager from right here in Pittsburgh. Good to see you, Karen.
Thank you, Nico. Good to see you, everyone. Thanks for joining the conversation. We're so excited. I'm sure it's going to be fun and interesting.
Before we jump into the discussion, let me remind you, dear audience, that you can and should be a part of this conversation. If you go to slido.com and type in #light, and I'm happy to see that you have already made your commentary on the Slido. Let me just really briefly put that away. You can use the Slido to express your thoughts and feelings around the questions, which is already up. The question is, what innovations in your mind come to your mind which you consider as special advancements in lighting? I mean, what are those things that have happened beyond the 1970s car I just showed you, which you feel most relevant? The first poll is already up, and we will be looking at this going forward. You can also use the live stream to pose questions to our experts. Feel free to put them in the chat, and we're able to see them in real time. So let's jump into the first topic of our talk. Let's talk about trends and challenges for electromobility, and maybe we start here from the American market and talk about factors influencing car design. And let's start with you, Paul, from Detroit. Where do you see current trends and challenges for the design of EVs and autonomous cars in the American market? And maybe you can talk a little bit about the trends you have been seeing for the design of car interior and exteriors, knowing that you have been doing this for decades, so you have an amazing perspective.
Thanks. Yeah, it's been a long and fruitful career so far, and I'm really enjoying it. And thanks for having me so much. So trends in lighting, I think, by and large, lighting there's a demand on lighting to become more expressive or become a kind of a tool or a mechanism by which brands can identify themselves, as well as express differentiation from other brands, but also within the lineup. So lighting can have a brand identity as well as across vehicle lines. So that's been coming for some time, and with the regulations requiring daytime running lights, for example, The discussions around lighting being a signature brand element were started many, many years ago. Now, the technology is enabling a much more expressive set of possibilities. They're much smaller, much brighter. They can be extremely thin. They can be packaged in minute locations that perhaps designers have been sketching for many years, but we're now seeing come to fruition through advances in the technology. So it's a very exciting time. You see lighting on interiors that's maybe slightly thicker than a heavy fishing line, and lighting on exteriors that, in a real sort of fascinating turn of events, the lighting itself is not even exposed, but instead it's almost like the ambient hidden light, as you see in clear story lighting in home interiors and office interiors. Now we're seeing that in automotive interiors. So the source of the light is hidden, but you see the glow across surfaces, which is very emotional. And I'm seeing a little bit of that in exterior design suddenly, where instead of shining out, the lighting is hidden below the bumper fascia and shining up onto a surface that's then facing the user. So you get this kind of ambient, super soft, very emotive kind of lighting happening in both places. It's been a long journey. I remember when I first graduated college in '87. And by '88, there was lighting the size of a credit card, and you started to see some of those coming out of Detroit. Credit cards were considered pretty small lighting at the time, that proportion and size. But now we've just blown way past that, and the amount of versatility that you can achieve with lighting is pretty extraordinary. As far as mobility goes, again, there's an opportunity for expressive and identifying light signatures across competitive brands, but there just aren't that many bespoke vehicles being designed for mobility per se. We have, like Waymo's using Zeekr now, and many brands have also used the Pacifica and the Volvo. But interesting use case for lighting on the Zoox autonomous vehicle is that the front and the rear are absolutely identical. So the lighting is capable of changing from headlight tones, white and amber, to taillight tones, red and amber, without changing the components at all, just through using the LEDs that are available. So lots of fascinating things on the horizon with lighting.
Thanks, Paul. And I think it's interesting that you mentioned these examples. And Paul-Henri, I will ask you next, because I actually have seen a car which is identical from the front and the back. I don't know about the lighting specifically. Well, it is a Citroën. But Paul-Henri, maybe you can go next and talk a little bit about how you see the role of light and lighting, given your perspective. And maybe you can talk a little bit about cars not being cars anymore, but maybe vehicular robots.
Yeah. But what Paul did a very nice introduction, but he focused especially on design. But lighting first, it is not design; it is to see and to be seen. So to see, we need a very good lighting performance to be able to drive the car, especially when we're in mountain or when it is totally dark outside. So you need a good performance. And also, the second topic about lighting, it is to be seen. So we need some signaling function to be seen by others, but also to be seen by sensor, to be seen by cameras, and so on. So even if we are thinking that we will have only autonomous car in the future, then autonomous car, you need some sensors. So you need LiDAR, you need a camera, and you need a radar. LiDAR and radar, they do not need light, but cameras, they need light. So at the end, we will continue to have the need of light. So it is quite important. Even if we go to robot, at the end, we will need some sensor, and the sensors, they will need light. Yeah.
And I think there you said it, light encompasses so many functionalities of a car and a robot. It's not just the light we see; it's light and all the wavelengths overall. So there's much more to the equation that literally meets the eye. Daniel, maybe we can go to you next. Again, from your background, how do you balance design and functionality? I mean, I can tell you it's snowing in Pittsburgh right now, and I have my own experience from driving a LiDAR car, an earlier model, in a snowstorm, and then it says sensor is stuck. I know today they are better, but sensors can fail under harsh environmental conditions.
Well, yeah, that's an important point. It's sort of a good jumping off point to sort of build on what Paul-Henri said, which is, we're hearing a lot of, self-driving cars, they're going to have all these sensors, so we're not going to need traditional headlamps and tail lamps anymore. That's not actually the case for a whole bunch of reasons, not least of which is when the sensor can't see, the human still has to be able to see. And sort of as an adjunct to that, you get people saying, well, if a human doesn't have to drive the car, why do there need to be headlamps? There's a psychological element involved. I think if I were in a self-driving car at night, I would be very uncomfortable if I could not clearly see the road ahead, even if I'm not the one who has to turn the steering wheel and step on the brakes. So there's that. But I want to sort of take the conversation in a slightly different direction. There are whole new lighting functions that are coming to the fore as vehicles gain autonomy. One thing that drivers do all the time is signal to each other with, hand gestures or even just a nod, eye contact. When there's no human driver, how does the pedestrian sort of establish that line of communication that, oh, okay, this person, or in the new case, this car sees me and it's aware of my existence. Do you have the clip? I wonder if we could run the clip that sort of illustrates this.
It'll take a while, but
okay, we'll come back to that. Gestures and eyebrow waggles and nods have to be replaced somehow, and the obvious way to do it is with light. And so right now it's sort of a very exciting time where people are sort of trying to hash out, well, how do we do this? We might have, on an electric vehicle, we don't need a radiator grill anymore. So we have a panel, we have a grill board instead. And we can do all kinds of things with new materials, new light sources to sort of replace these gestures and nods. And so now we're all sort of trying to figure out how do we do that best, which raises its own interesting set of questions because a color or a pictogram. Yeah, here we go. Here's the clip. That's the opening scene from an old movie called L.A. Story. You see 4 cars and the drivers are all gesturing to each other to go ahead. And here's what happens, a 13-second clip. Voila. So you hope that the communication works better than that. But what I was just saying was that a color or a pictogram, a symbol that might seem obvious to you and me with our cultural background might be totally alien, incomprehensible, or even counter to the intended message in another culture. So right now, everybody's sort of trying to figure out some universality and sort of winnow out, well, if green means go and red means stop, okay, maybe that's all right. But what does blue mean? What does a square mean? What does a smile mean? We can't assume. And so as new materials and optics and light sources and all of this technology sort of enables new ways of communicating with light, there's this whole other side of it, trying to figure out, now that we can do this, how should we do it?
That is amazing, Daniel. I can only, if you talk about the iconography, all the Olympics, and how people are communicating with symbols, which can have completely different meanings. So not only language, but also symbols, and combined in light. It's a tough job for automotive designers, for sure. I love, you bringing that aspect in. Karen, why is a plastics company involved in all of this? Why are kind of the future of automotive lighting, why is it dependent on the materials that Covestro is producing?
Thanks for bringing that question up, Nico. Historically, engineering plastics have made a lot of contributions to the automotive industry. For quite some time, it's been a long journey for all the resin manufacturers out there in the industry. Just to give you a couple of examples, we've been replacing metals for many years now with engineering plastics, and these makes cars safer, but also lighter. That directly translates into fuel efficiency or battery range performance for electric vehicles. Now, we are integrating sensors and HMI features, lighting features all over the car, from the exterior to the interior, bumper to bumper. And all those new features have to perform well, have to be protected. Sensors are very sensitive, but also they have to be safe for the passengers. With all these change from combustion engine to electrical vehicles, many of the traditional applications that engineering plastics have been will have a major high and positive impact on the electrification. Front grills, just as an example, right on there, Nico. Front grills for electric vehicles, they are not so much used to cool their battery system, but to make them more attractive, to speak through the design, to give the car's character, to make it more personalized. But they can also make the vehicle more aerodynamic too. The front end of an electric vehicle will have to be equally safe to the front end that internal combustion engine cars have nowadays. We have to be able to integrate lighting features, LiDARs, and any other sensors and heating elements. So all the resin manufacturers, we play a major role, and it's a teamwork. We have to work with all the parts manufacturers, all the OEMs to take the automotive industry to the next level, to make it more sustainable, to make it safer, not only for the users, but also for the pedestrians.
Thanks, Karen. There's so many parts of the vehicle which have been made safer, better, or more efficient using plastics. Also something that many people don't realize when they're touching a part that looks like metal actually isn't, because it would be too cumbersome, too expensive, and too heavy to be used. I mean, you guys are the experts in this. We already touched upon the point of personalization, and maybe Paul-Henri, I go to you next to talk about what are ways of using light to create a more unique and more personalized atmosphere. I'm sure you have been talking about this a lot. So how do you kind of envision the atmosphere, maybe the light atmosphere in the car evolving, and maybe talk a little bit about the functionalities that come with that?
Yeah, indeed. Now we have a lot of LEDs. We have not only one LEDs. When it was in the past bulb, you have one bulb to do one function. It was quite easy and nothing to do. But now you put a lot of LEDs in a row. You can have 10 LEDs, 100 LEDs, 10,000 LEDs, and you go to display. And then you can select the light you want. And it is exactly the trend we see in China. And now we see that it is coming in Europe. So you have some displays like Avatar or like the new Zeekr 007 in Europe, and then you can select exactly the signature, the light signature you want. You can do the same, and then you have some semiconductor to be able to drive each LED one by one, and you can do the design you want. So you can have, if you want a sort of wave, you can have a triangle shape, you can have a rectangle shape, you can do what you want. You can select it. You have a display in the car and you can select what you want, but it can change automatically. Also, I have seen for interior lighting that you can change automatically the color of the light when it is 9 in the morning or when it is 5 in the afternoon. And also you have different possibilities. Now you can do with your phone. It is what I have seen, I think, with Human Horizon and i5Z in China. You can draft a signature in your phone and it will be in your lamp. So you can do what you want. Is it needed or not? This I don't know, but you have this flexibility, and designers, they can do at the end what they want.
Maybe Paul-Henri, I stop you right there. There is this catchphrase we have been hearing that light is the new chrome. My Volkswagen Golf didn't have a lot of chrome in it and not a lot of light either. But would you say that the light is the new chrome or isn't it? What do you say?
It certainly has that potential. Definitely. This is something that's been going through different trends over the course of certainly as long as I've been in the business. In the 80s, there was a big push to get rid of as much chrome as possible because it was so overdone in the 70s. So it went away for a while, and then more recently, we've been seeing a lot of chrome because it does kind of signify a more premium bling kind of appearance. But nowadays, with lighting and that trend sort of having run its course with chrome again, we've been seeing a lot of black versions or the models that are just called black, black wheels, everything is blacked out. So lighting starts to become another opportunity instead of just the shape of the light bar or the headlamp or whatever, lighting the car itself or lighting the ground. Puddle lamps have become signature branding opportunities. For example, like on the Mach-E, you see the Mustang, the horse itself projected on the ground when you open the door, which is very thoughtful. Sill panels, rocker panels have embedded lighting in them. There are so many opportunities, and as Paul-Henri said, front end lighting and even further for more autonomous functions. Some of the outward facing glazing, whether it's on the front or the side of the vehicle, is becoming screens for communication. So once we have outward facing screens, really the only limitation is your imagination and, just being careful not to distract people who are still driving in any way, but more to communicate and to express within those boundaries, express yourself. I mean, I could see people designing their own signature grill, uploading it through the cloud, and you've really done something very, very personal with your own vehicle.
Which is, I mean, I haven't seen personalized grills yet, but maybe they're coming. At the CES, I was sitting in some cars. Actually, BMW had this one car where all the screens, all the windows inside were actually screens, just like you explained. Maybe also highlighting the future where you don't need to see outside the window anymore. And this is, by the way, something I definitely want to ask also Daniel about. Before going to Karen to talk about, because I know Covestro and Karen, you have been working with LEDs and that part of lighting before. But before we go there, Daniel, maybe can you talk a little bit about the point you came also before, non-verbal communications between a car and its surroundings?
Yeah.
How do you see that going forward?
Well, they're under active development right now, and the first regulatory permissions starting in Europe are whole new ground projections. We've heard about puddle lights and brand identity that way, but as projector technology gets better and LEDs get better, we can do more with that kind of thing. For example, we can solve old problems. One old problem is that you're in a parkade and you're driving along looking for a parking space, and suddenly, whoa, there's a car in front of you reversing out of a parking space. You couldn't see its reversing lamps because it was hidden by the car next to it. And compounding that problem, in sort of the 1990s, we got some car makers started using the reversing lights as courtesy lights. You click your key fob to find your car, and the horn beeps, and the reversing lights come on. Well, back in that parkade, now I see this car with a reversing light. I hit my brakes because I think the car is about to back out. Nope, false alarm, and maybe the car behind me has to stop short. It's kind of a mess. We can solve both of those problems now by projecting a reversing light signal on the ground behind the car. as a series of white chevrons or white lines. We can do the same with turn signals, which is terrific, particularly for vulnerable road users like pedestrians and bicyclists who might not be able to see that there's a car sort of adjacent to them, maybe behind them, maybe a little ahead of them, about to turn across their path. If you have sort of nice, amber chevrons flashing on the ground emanating from this vehicle, that means now the bicyclist can see that there's about to be a car that intends to turn across its path. So it's not just for, it certainly is for personalization and that sort of thing, but there's also a strong functional element involved here.
Definitely. And I wonder, the feeling, and maybe our dear audience can also answer this question: would you trust autonomous car displaying chevron stripes or Zebrastreifen, as you say in German, and then walk on it because the car says so, it's safe? I think it's a fascinating topic of when do we trust these robots, which are cars with humans inside. Fascinating. Karen, let me come back to you. I mean, we have talked about the personalization aspect. Can you talk a little bit about more kind of where you see the role of plastics in that context?
Yes, let me tell you that lighting and personalization is not only focused on headlamps right now or tail lamps. Lighting is really going all over the car. We now have lighting applications being integrated into the body panels for the exteriors. We also have lighting applications and functional integration for interior applications, where they can help you set the mood, make your drive or your ride more comfortable. So you need a clear, jet strong engineering plastic like polycarbonate. And sorry for the commercial, but when you use engineering plastics like polycarbonate, the possibilities for functional integration are endless. You can integrate lighting, HMI features, very innovative and highly decorated texture surface in a seamless way. You can backlight surfaces, you can decorate them, and especially with now all the sensor integration, it's a major challenge that we are facing right now. Make that personalization that the user is asking for, but also give designers and engineers the freedom to use a material that allows them to take that vision and take it down to reality. Use it in serial cars, in high production vehicles. That we are working on. So we are coming with many different solutions to integrate complex geometries and also some other materials like natural, real materials like wood, like cork, stone, now fabric. We have seen all these very great designs that all the designers around the world are coming up with. And that freedom of design is only possible with engineering plastics. We are replacing glass, we are replacing metals, and it's for a reason. You can injection mold all those components, make them lighter, more sustainable, safer. So it's not a surprise why designers and engineers choose plastics to work with.
Yeah, which it's great to hear. I mean, I'm quite sure that Paul would agree that designers want to implement their designs and not to be restricted by the materials. Materials should enable. Let's take a quick look at what our audience has so far said on the most advances of vehicle lighting. So this is what they have said so far. I would love to get your color commentary on this. Would these be advancements from your point of view, and what is missing? What would you kind of say, okay, this has been kind of the major breakthrough? Anybody? Go ahead.
Yes, I can talk, Paul-Henri. Yes, I think the major breakthrough is LED, because with LED in the past, it was not possible to use plastic because it was 250 degrees and then you melt the plastic, so you need a glass. And then if you need a glass to do an headlamp, it was a rectangular shape or round shape, and all the car makers have exactly the same lamp. But then with LEDs, you can go to plastic, you can do some curvature, you can do some shape. So it is due to LEDs, we have completely redesigned the lamp. You can see inside the lamp, and then you have this fully flexibility that we have today. So it is a major innovation we have faced during the last 20 years in lighting industry.
I'd jump in on that as well, maybe. One of the things, sort of building on Karen's comment about new materials allowing a wider range of surfaces, one of the conflicts, I think, between design and function is that everybody wants to have a nice sort of clean dashboard, maybe with a screen or two, maybe spanning the whole dashboard or maybe in the middle. But that makes problems for vehicle controls because everybody's getting rid of dials and buttons and knobs. And the problem that we've found is that you cram too many controls into menus and submenus and sub-submenus on a screen. It's not operable safely at all. You're looking away from the road. So there's a push to maybe sort of move controls off of that screen and distribute them more around the cabin, but we still want the clean design. So there's this cool thing called Shy Tech, which is controls and displays that only appear when they are needed, when they're being used. So think of a power window switch. Instead of sort of having to navigate on a screen that's over here for a window that's over there, you might have an area on the door panel which is just looks like part of the door panel until you wave your hand near it. And then by magic, this power window switch appears by light, and you move your hand, or maybe you touch the area that you want the down arrow or the up arrow, and the window responds. So now you have your cake and you eat it too. You've got your clean design, you've got your distributed controls that aren't on sub menus. You get controls where they should be near the item that they're operating. And everybody's happy. In theory, it's brand new. I suspect a lot of how satisfactory it will be in the implementation. But that's another big advancement, again, made possible only by LEDs and new materials.
Thanks, Daniel. I think many exciting prospects of getting good functionality and more functionality out of the surfaces which we are seeing today. I think also we have seen a lot of complaints about not knowing how these surfaces work, because people are still used to these button and knobs. It's super interesting to see kind of the evolution of how the habits evolve with the new functionalities of cars. I would maybe like to go we talked already about the psychology of light, but let's combine that kind of as the last topic with sustainability, because one of the reasons why we need more electric vehicles is just to reduce the emissions. There needs to be designs that embrace the concept of circular economy and to make it compatible with that. So maybe we can talk a little bit, and that is also maybe if I listen to many of the interviews being done also behind buying choices for electric vehicles, it is actually sustainability. People want to be part of the solution, and they don't kind of want to be increasing their emissions. So maybe you can talk as the last topic bucket, talk a little bit about on that, and maybe Paul-Henri, maybe you could start.
Yes, I can start just with some figures about CO2 emission. And then lighting on a car is around 2% or 3% of the emission when you produce the car or when you use the car. And if we check about lighting, indeed, the usage phase is representing around 70% of the CO2 emission, and 30% is when we build the lamp. So the building the lamp is not so important, it is the usage. And then the usage is especially the low beam by night and the daytime running lamp by day. So we have to reduce it. And to be able to reduce it, we have to find efficient system, we have to reduce, to improve the efficiency of the LED system and so on. But then if you go to the component itself, when we build it, then 30%, and in this 30%, you have 20% which is plastic and 80% which is electronics. So electronics to produce PCB, to produce semiconductor, it is not so good. And then we have to find solution to be able to rebuild, to reuse this component or to improve it. But about plastic, we have already some possibilities because we can reuse the plastic. So I know that Covestro, you have some solution to be able to reuse, and you will have in lenses, so outer lenses of headlamp, I think next year. So this is very good because plastic we can reuse, and this is a good point. For the other point, electronics, it is a challenge for everybody, and today the solutions are not yet on the market.
Thanks, Paul-Henri. Definitely a path to achieve first full circularity, also in a complex design such as an automotive. Paul, what about your students? Do you touch upon the topic of building circular cars? Is that a topic?
Yeah, we definitely do. In fact, occasionally through our sponsors who are very concerned about not only the actual improvement in our impact on the environment, but also for their specific product, which is occasionally plastics. So we talk about it a lot, and sponsors support it completely. One of the big I think challenges there is for real circularity, you have to be able to take the vehicle apart and break it down into respective pieces and components again. So as parts become comprised of multi-materials, in some cases bondings and things like that, it becomes very difficult to disassemble. So design for disassembly is kind of a holy grail, but design for disassembly requires you first need to know how to assemble. So that's a lot of information for a 4-year program. So we're scratching the surface there. We're talking about it philosophically and theoretically, but we're relying on the engineers to actually figure out how to, produce the materials without permanent bondings and embeddings and layers and things like that. That would make it very difficult to just put it in the chopper, right?
Yeah.
Or just reuse the plastics that are coming off of the vehicle. We're definitely talking about the students are very concerned about these things. And it's a good challenge for us to be pursuing.
Yeah, and how cool would it be to be able to build a car completely out of renewable materials? Maybe someday that would be amazing. Would be a reality. Karen, I know you work a lot with renewable plastics. What's the outlook from your point of view? Karen? Looks like
yes. I was fighting with my mute. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Go ahead. So I was asking you, based on based on the dream of building more circularity.
So integrated sustainability, resin manufacturers. Do you hear me now?
Looks like we have a bad connection to your area, but now it seems to be up again. Go ahead.
Do you hear me now?
Let's wait for her connection to improve. Okay. Let's give Karen one more chance. Go ahead, Karen. Let's talk about what is kind of the perspective on renewable plastics as a part of a vehicle that is a part of the circular economy.
Thank you, Nico. So we have to take a holistic approach. First, we have things like Paul Snyder just mentioned, design for circularity. And we can also make use of monomaterial concepts, just like the monomaterial headlamp that we've been getting to introduce to the market in the last couple of years, where monomaterial concepts have proven to save a lot of weight. The headlamp that you see there, It has lots of processing technologies, and material combination in order to make it about lighter, but also more sustainable by reducing the overall carbon footprint of the system, and also make it easy to recycle at the end of life, to recover those materials. Now, we have several options. We've seen in the market for quite some years now recycled products, but recycled products don't really help us for lighting applications, because you have to meet certain requirements like yellow index, like optical purity, so nothing gets into the way of the light or the sensors. So not even chemical recycling will be free of defects from yellow index effects. So we have now drop-in solutions that are bio-based renewable materials that are using biocircular feedstocks like waste from cooking oils. And those are drop-in solutions because we are replacing the fossil content of those materials with these renewable based materials. And at the end, the molecule that you get is the same. So you will not see any difference in the performance or the quality of the materials when you use this kind of materials. In our case, we have a great range of possibilities. All the DQ portfolio, CQ portfolio now, it's integrated with Macrolon RE CQ for all the lighting applications. And you can take, in the best cases, the carbon footprint down to zero if you get material produced in our site in Germany. So I think we can use a lot of approaches here, lots of tools that we can have, processing, design, but also materials.
Very nice. It's encouraging, I think, to see that solutions are being developed and the possibility of them being implemented is getting better and better. And at one day, we may actually have a fully circular built car which can be recycled, not only in parts, but also completely. Before we close down, let's see if we can answer this question from Jay. I clicked. Let's go to James first. Thank you, James, for asking the question. Let's see if we can answer this one. Do you envisage more usage of higher quality cockpits with individual aspects, LED and soft touch, PC/ABS, moving away from PP, low cost, glossy look? Anyone to take a crack at this?
Yes, I think, Paul-Henri, I was a car maker, so the problem is the cost. It depends where you want to put your money. We know PP is very cheap, yes, €1 per kilo, something like this. Polycarbonate, €3 per kilo, perhaps more. And then after you have to add LED and electronics. So it really depends where you want to put the money in your car. Today, for the moment, we put money in the battery for electrical cars, so we have perhaps less money. But it is, I know designers, they want to have it, also perceived quality, they want to have it, but it has a cost.
A simple, yeah. Daniel, go ahead.
I'd like to build on what Paul-Henri said by analogy to the past. In the 1970s, when it suddenly became important to control exhaust emissions from cars, which had never been the case before, that was the focus of where a lot of money was being put, to the near exclusion of almost everything else. And so everything you can list in interior quality and paint quality and build quality and everything kind of stagnated or even suffered while that problem was addressed. And I think we might see echoes of that now, where everybody is focusing a lot of attention, therefore a lot of money, on battery technology and electric drive technology. And that's advancing rapidly. And I think before too long, it's probably going to have advanced to a point where there's a little breathing space and there's more room to spend more attention, spend more money on some of the niceties. I mean, not that we're not seeing an enormous amount of diversity in interior materials and design now, but I think it's probably going to blossom further once we're a little more comfortable and a little more stable on the fundamental shift to electric drivetrains.
Thank you, Daniel. I think that is nicely put. It's
Nico, can I also add
Sure, Karen.
on Paul-Henri's comment, while polypropylene is economically viable, you cannot back illuminate polypropylene, right? So you will have to make some assemblies and build the lens to cover the LEDs. So I think the current challenge of integrating functions and lighting will need optical grade materials, like optical grade polycarbonate blends or straight polycarbonate. While taking also a look at the cost and the processing, the overall system cost has to make sense for everyone, for the OEMs, but also for the buyers of the cars.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Karen, for that comment. And thanks for the audience for pitching in. We are unfortunately actually running out of our broadcast slot. So I definitely want to thank you guys, Paul-Henri, Daniel, and Karen, for taking time out of your, I know, very busy schedules in the morning and in the evening to chat with us. We could go on with this topic, as it seems, for many hours more, and we have to do it another time. Thank you, dear audience, for engaging with us, and let's continue the conversation on social. This was our last broadcast in this series for the year, so be sure to subscribe and like to get notified when we go live again. Thank you very much for watching, and bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
I know.
Engage with us. See you later.
Okay. That went well.